The first rays of the morning sun stretched across the parking lot of the annual Freedom Community Festival, where thousands of families gathered to celebrate veterans, first responders, and local heroes. Children laughed around food trucks, musicians performed patriotic songs, and a temporary martial arts arena stood proudly in the center of the park, surrounded by cheering spectators. Everyone expected the highlight of the day to be an exhibition by the nation's undefeated black belt champion. Instead, the event became unforgettable for an entirely different reason. Before hundreds of stunned witnesses, the celebrated fighter pointed toward a quiet truck driver unloading donated supplies and publicly challenged him, convinced the older man would embarrass himself in front of the crowd. Cameras immediately turned toward the gray-haired driver, who simply smiled and continued carrying heavy boxes as if he hadn't heard a word. Nobody watching realized that beneath the faded work shirt, weathered hands, and calm expression stood a man who had once commanded one of the most respected elite Navy SEAL teams in American history. By sunset, the champion would discover that true strength never announces itself, it quietly waits until others need it most. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Dad's Soul Diaries. Your support helps us continue sharing inspiring stories that remind the world compassion is stronger than pride. The truck driver's name was Silas Granger, a 48-year-old widowed father whose life had changed forever 9 years earlier when his wife, Helena, lost her battle with cancer. Since then, every decision he made centered around one person, his 15-year-old daughter, Maris. She was bright, compassionate, and determined to become a physician one day because she never forgot the nurses who cared for her mother during those difficult months. Silas worked long-haul trucking routes 6 days a week, often driving through the night so he could still attend Maris's school events during the day. Their home was modest, their truck was aging, and their savings account rarely grew, yet their lives overflowed with love, gratitude, and quiet resilience. Very few people knew anything about Silas's military past. Before becoming a truck driver, he had spent more than 2 decades serving in the United States Navy. During those years he rose through the ranks until he became the commanding officer of an elite SEAL unit responsible for some of the military's most dangerous rescue operations. Many of those missions remained classified, and Silas intended to keep them that way. Inside an old wooden chest in his garage rested medals, commendations, photographs, and letters from grateful families whose loved ones had returned home because of his team. Maris had seen the chest only once. Her father gently closed it before explaining that the greatest victories belonged to everyone who served together, not to one individual seeking recognition. Silas often repeated the same lesson whenever Maris faced challenges at school. He reminded her that confidence should never become arrogance, strength should never become cruelty, and respect should always be earned through actions rather than demanded through intimidation. Those simple principles shaped the young woman she was becoming, and she admired her father not because of his hidden military accomplishments but because he never stopped treating everyone with kindness, whether they were wealthy executives or struggling strangers. That Saturday morning, Silas volunteered to transport thousands of pounds of donated food, blankets, medical supplies, and school backpacks to the festival using his 18-wheeler. He refused every offer of payment, believing service did not end when someone removed a military uniform. Several local veterans greeted him warmly as volunteers began unloading the trailer. Children eagerly helped carry small boxes while community organizations prepared the donations for families in need. Meanwhile, the center of attention belonged to Dante Mercer, a 29-year-old undefeated karate black belt whose reputation had spread across the country. Dante possessed remarkable talent, lightning-fast reflexes, and years of disciplined training. His victories filled social media, sponsorship deals poured in, and thousands admired his confidence. Unfortunately, success slowly transformed confidence into pride. Surrounded by constant praise, Dante began believing that true strength meant proving superiority whenever an audience gathered. Every public appearance became another opportunity to remind people why he considered himself unbeatable. As television crews prepared to broadcast his demonstration live, Dante noticed applause coming not from the martial arts arena but from the volunteer unloading area. Curious, he turned and saw Silas calmly lifting 2 heavy medical crates at once while helping an elderly veteran safely step down from a delivery truck. Spectators applauded the simple act of kindness, and several children rushed forward to help. The moment lasted only seconds, but it irritated Dante. He believed the cameras belonged on him. Smiling confidently, Dante walked toward the truck driver while photographers eagerly followed. The crowd naturally formed a wide circle, sensing that something unusual was about to happen. Silas continued organizing supplies without paying much attention. His experience had taught him that many confrontations disappeared when ignored. Dante loudly suggested that anyone strong enough to carry heavy crates should have no problem stepping onto the mat for a friendly demonstration. Laughter rippled through sections of the audience. Some believed the challenge was harmless entertainment. Others looked uncomfortable, sensing the older man had no interest in becoming part of the show. Silas politely declined with a calm smile and returned to his work. Rather than ending the moment, the refusal encouraged Dante even more. He interpreted silence as fear and humility as weakness. He began circling the unloading area while continuing to boast about his undefeated record, insisting that courage required accepting every challenge. Several younger martial arts students watched their champion proudly, unaware they were witnessing the difference between confidence and character. Maris stood nearby distributing bottled water to volunteers. Her heart tightened as she noticed people recording the encounter on their phones. She had seen strangers underestimate her father before because of his ordinary appearance, but never in front of such a large audience. For a brief moment she wanted to step forward and reveal who her father truly was. Instead, she remembered the lessons he had spent years teaching her. Respect was never something demanded through words. It revealed itself through actions. Festival organizers quietly asked Dante to return to the scheduled exhibition so the charity event could continue. Unfortunately, he refused. The growing crowd only fueled his determination. Reporters adjusted microphones while online viewers poured into the live broadcast. What had begun as a community celebration slowly transformed into a spectacle built around pride. Silas finally placed the last donation box onto a waiting pallet and gently thanked every volunteer who had helped unload the truck. Then he turned toward Dante with the same calm expression he had carried throughout the morning. There was no anger in his eyes, no resentment, and certainly no fear. Years of combat had taught him something most people never learned: the loudest challenge in the room rarely represented the greatest danger. He quietly explained that today was meant to honor veterans, support struggling families, and inspire young people. Turning the event into a contest of egos would disrespect everyone who had gathered for a higher purpose. His words were spoken without raising his voice, yet they carried a quiet authority that caused several older veterans in the crowd to exchange knowing glances. Among those watching stood retired Navy Master Chief Brennan Cross, whose eyes widened the moment he recognized Silas. Decades earlier, Brennan had coordinated logistics for multiple classified missions involving SEAL teams. Although he never served directly under Silas, he remembered hearing stories whispered with enormous respect throughout the military. He immediately understood exactly who the humble truck driver was. Brennan remained silent. Some truths revealed themselves only when the time was right. Dante, however, noticed none of it. Believing he had completely intimidated the older man, he confidently stepped into the center of the demonstration ring and publicly invited Silas one final time. Spectators leaned forward in anticipation. Television cameras zoomed in. Children stopped playing. Even the breeze seemed to fade as the entire festival waited to see whether the quiet truck driver would finally respond. Silas looked toward his daughter, who offered him a small, encouraging smile. He gently nodded back, took a slow breath, and began walking toward the arena, not because he wished to fight, but because sometimes the greatest lesson cannot be taught through words alone.